Hare Krishna. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. I'm first of all offering millions and millions of Dandavat pranams unto the lotus feet of my most beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astol Tarasarashishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And the same again, millions and millions of times unto the lotus feet of our most beloved Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Astol Tarasarashishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and all our Rupa Nuga Guru Vargya, and all the Vaishnava and Vaishnavi devotees of the Lord, my Dandavat pranams. So today, we've reached Giriraj Govardhana, and a change of atmosphere from our somewhat congested environment in Vrindavan. And today we're going to honor Giriraj Govardhana by performing a Parikrama. We're going to go the south end, what we sometimes refer to as the big Parikrama. So we're staying in our Giridhari Gaudiya Math here, and we'll walk to the main road, and we'll walk up through the center of the township of Govardhana, and just before the road crosses over the back of Govardhana, we'll take a left and come down to Dana-ghati. Previously, the Babas, they objected to this road being built across the back of Govardhana, of course. And for many, many years, the Babas would lie across the area to obstruct the roadworks, machinery, etc. from coming in. And they staged a successful protest. For about 10-12 years, they managed to halt the road that now goes right across the back of Govardhana. But the devotees, whenever they can avoid it, they don't use that road. We do take our buses over there now, but we would prefer to go through the gully. There's a road with stone slabs that was a natural pathway coming through the mountain right at this place of Govardhana, just besides Manasiganga. So it was this path that on this day, that when Bhaguri Muni was holding a yagya at Govardhana Kunda, that all the gopis, they decided to bring their yogurt, their pots of butter and their milk as an offering for that yagya. So they would come round a pathway. It was a natural pathway leading through. So Krishna, of course, and his sakhas, they knew that the gopis, they would be bringing so many offerings for Bhaguri Muni to assist in his yagya. So they very cleverly created a toll with sticks and so on, obstructing the path, so that Radha and the Sakhis, they couldn't get through. And then Krishna, as the Sakhis were coming down, he jumped into the middle of the pathway and declared that I am the toll collector here, and you must all give me some tax before you continue on your journey to the yagya. And of course the Sakhis were extremely annoyed by this. Lalita Devi, she says, what toll tax? We have never paid any toll tax before, she was saying. And then Krishna insisted. He said, no, today you must pay some toll tax. What are you carrying anyway? And then they began to describe the beautiful fresh butter and milk and yogurt that they were carrying in their pots. And all these suckers, their mouths were watering, especially Madhu Mangal. So they became very enthusiastic to collect the taxes of the gopis. And then Krishna was challenged by Lalita, what right have you got to collect these taxes? And Krishna responded, he said, don't be so insolent. Don't you know I'm Vrindavaneshwari, the ruler of the kingdom of Vrindavan? Oh, really? They responded. How is that? And then Krishna replied, well, I'm married to the queen of Vrindavan, Vrinda Devi. This gives me the kingship of Vrindavan. And the Sakis, they begin to chuckle amongst themselves, and they turn to Vrinda Devi and said, oh, are you married to this black boy? And Vrinda responds, she flares up in disgust, it's described, and she says, never. I have no relation with this lying debauchee. Previously, this was my kingdom, she says, but I have given it to Vrindavaneshwari, Srimati Radhika. All the Sakis burst into laughter, which slightly embarrassed Sri Krishna. Nonetheless, he was determined to collect the toll tax. And then they had a very beautiful, loving quarrel. They were taxing different parts of their jewelry and bodily parts, etc. And finally, Krishna exacted from them sufficient butter and curds to satisfy his sakas that were there. And then he allowed the gopis to pass through that place. But these are the sort of beautiful pastimes that constantly are relished by Krishna and his sakas and sakis in Vrindavan. So this particular pastime we remember with great happiness. This is called Dana-ghati, and it's the first place that we come to on our Parikrama. We go in through a small gate and we see the very place where they actually came, where Krishna took up that role of tax collector. So the Sakis, they were not happy with that situation. They felt that Krishna had got the better of them. So the next day, just a little bit further on from Dana-ghati, as we walk down the road, we come to Dana-ghati. And this is where the Sakis, they got their revenge on Krishna for his Dana-ghati pastimes. And it's described how there was just a few Sakis who were there in Dana-ghati, and they had their pots of milk and so on. And Krishna came with his sakas, and he was very arrogantly again demanding that they give some tax. But at that time the Sakis, they called loudly, and all of a sudden thousands and thousands and thousands of Sakis came out of the bushes and from behind the trees, and they grabbed Krishna and the sakas, and they tied Krishna up, and they put a skirt on him and a choli on him, and then they put a pot of yogurt on his head. And then Lalita, she very carefully aimed a stone, and it broke that pot, and all the yogurt spilled all over Krishna. And all the Sakis were clapping very happily. Now we have got our revenge for what you did at Dana-ghati. Thus this Dana-ghati is just a little bit further down the road. So we get a feeling, a mood of the sort of youthful behavior, the youthful joyous games that Krishna performed with his sakas and the sakis, and how it was so much filled with sweetness and joy and happiness. Of course, every time Krishna looked at Radha and Radha looked at Krishna, their hearts just pounded, and with great affection to each other. So they relished these pastimes so much. It was so much mood, so much bhavs were there between Krishna and the gopis. So as we come to Dana-ghati, then again we come onto the Parikrama path. After Dana-ghati, we walk down, and just before we get to Dana-ghati, there's a very large Hanuman deity standing on the side of the road, all coloured up orange, which reminds me to let you know what is the monkey mantra, because there are hundreds and hundreds of monkeys on the Parikrama path around Govardhana now. Previously, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there weren't so many, but now there are so many monkeys, just like in Vrindavan. So we should know the monkey mantra. It's very simple. It's Om Hrim Hanumate Namaha. Just 4 words. Om Hrim Hanumate Namaha. So this is the monkey mantra. But of course, if you just chant Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, Jai Radhe, this also has a significant effect. But you can remember that mantra for security as we're walking around, because sometimes there are hundreds of monkeys right on the parikrama and you have to walk between them all. So you have to hold your breath and either chant that mantra or be chanting Radhe, 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 Radhe. So that's just something to be aware of as we're making our way towards the first stop, which will be Annayor. We're coming from Dana-ghati. We passed Dan near Kunda, and then the first little village we come to is Annayor. After Annayor will be Govinda Kunda. After Govinda Kunda, we'll come to the south end of Giriraj. This is called Punchari, a village Punchari is there. And then we'll come up facing the north again. We'll have turned around the bottom of Govardhana and we'll be walking back up again. And the first stop there we'll come to is Surabhi-kunda. And then we'll come to Jatipura. Jatipura and Annayor are just opposite each other on different sides of Giriraj. And then from Jatipura we go back again to Govardhana. So that's our route for the day. Hare Krishna. I just remembered one detail, that at the beginning of our parikrama, when we left Giridhari Gaudiya Math, we would of course have come to Manasi Ganga, and we would have purified ourselves with some drops of her water, and then we would have walked up to take darshan of Haridev there. Without taking darshan of Haridev, then our parikrama actually has no value. We have to have darshan and offer any fruit that we're going to gain of this parikrama into the hands of Haridev himself. Haridev himself is the master of Giriraj Govardhana. So we are begging for his mercy before we begin the parikrama. So leaving the temple, we came to Manasi Ganga, and then we took darshan of Haridev, and then there's a path behind Haridev where we can reach the road which comes eventually to Dana-ghati, where we began our parikrama. So that part will be done at the beginning of the parikrama. So the first place we stop with our party is Annayor. And in Annayor, today we see this particular village, which is perhaps the most special of all the places, because the pastime that happened here is so beautiful. And yet the villagers, we see the village itself is in a very humble condition. The villagers they never appear to have any kind of opulences at all. They just have very tiny little shops in the village. Even though they get millions, literally millions and millions of tourists coming through the year, still the village itself is remarkably humble in its appearance, etc. So at this place, Annayor, we begin to hear the beautiful Giriraj Govardhana Leela, this very sweet pastime that is performed just prior to Krishna's full-blown Rasa Leela. So we'll discuss aspects of that when we come to those different places of the Rasa Stali, etc. But in this place of Annayor, Krishna, as a small boy, he's 7 years old, and he's seeing his father and all the gopas making extensive arrangement for a festival, for a yajna. And he inquires from his father what he's doing, making all these elaborate arrangements for the festival. Who is it for? Why is he doing this? Krishna is acting as if he doesn't know. Krishna, we know, is Sarvagya. He's all-knowing, and he's Mugdata. He doesn't know anything. So he's inquiring from his father in a very gentle, very beautiful way. And his father is impressed by the mood with which he's inquiring. It's not just like a little talkative child questioning a father who will just ignore his child. but Krishna is having the attention of Nanda Baba, and he's asking in all earnestness what is the reason that he's collecting all these items and so on. And then his father very patiently replies that we are going to offer all this to Lord Indra. Lord Indra is giving us the life rains, which give us grass and trees and vegetables and all the waterfalls. So we should worship him. And this has been our tradition for many, many generations, because we are cowherders. We are depending on the grasses to grow. Without the rains, without this sustenance, we can't survive. So we're honoring Lord Indra in gratitude for the rains. But then Krishna, he responds with a somewhat impersonal mood. He understands that Lord Indra has become somewhat proud of his position as the king of the heavenly planets. This is a very, very opulent position. This means Lord Indra, he is the controller of Agni Dev. He's the controller of Vayu. He's the controller of Varuna Dev. He's controlling all these demigods. They are all under his command. So it seems almost natural that some pride is going to come in his heart. But certainly pride has come into his heart, and Krishna wants to be very merciful to Lord Indra and relieve him of that pride. So now Krishna, he wants to convince his father that it's not necessary to worship Lord Indra. So he responds with a somewhat impersonal, it's called karma mimamsa philosophy. He says, well, the rain is falling in all kinds of places. It's falling on the rocks, it's falling in the ocean. It's not just falling on the fertile ground to give us grasses and so on. So it's not being arranged directly that these grasses will be nourished just for your benefit. This is just a haphazard arrangement, but it's coming according to our various karmas. According to whatever we deserve, then those rains will come. It's nothing to do really with Lord Indra. And it's described in the Srimad Bhagavatam that, I'm just going to read a couple of the translations here. Krishna is saying to his father, actually this philosophy that Krishna is propounding to his father is ultimately atheistic, because it's taking out the personality of Krishna ultimately through his agencies of the heavenly management area of Indradev. So he's saying, no, it's not like this. Actually, it's just according to our karma. And Krishna is doing this so that Indra will eventually get his mercy. And one of the verses that Krishna is speaking to his father, this I'm quoting from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter 24 on worshipping Govardhana hill. Krishna says, every individual is under the control of his own conditioned nature, and thus he must follow that nature. This entire universe, with all its demigods, demons, and human beings, is based on the conditioned nature of the living entities. Because it is karma that causes the conditioned living entity to accept and then give up different high and low grade material bodies. This karma is his enemy, friend, and neutral witness, his spiritual master and controlling lord. Therefore, one should seriously worship work itself. A person should remain in the position corresponding to his nature and should perform his own duty. Indeed, that by which we may live nicely is really our worshipable deity. So Krishna, he speaks very eloquently, and all the gopas are most impressed by the mood and authority with which Krishna, in his little boy's body, is able to present such a clear philosophy that there's no need to worship Indra. Instead, he suggests that we should honor and worship this beautiful mountain, Giriraj Govardhana, because this mountain is giving us so much shelter, and we should worship the cows, and we should worship the brahmanas. This is a much better focus for all our effort and all these elaborate ingredients. These are going to increase our good fortune and our good karma, and this will give us the results that we want. So Krishna, he very convincingly persuaded his father and the other gopas, the elder gopas who were listening, Upananda, Abhinanda, Sunandan, Nandanandan, Nanda Baba's brothers, etc., all the gopas, Govardhan, Mala, all the different persons. And they discussed amongst themselves, and they all agreed, yes, Krishna's given us a very good proposal. Let's use all these ingredients that we've gathered for the yajna to honor Lord Indra, and offer it instead to the cows and Giriraj. So then they proceeded to ask Krishna, well, how should we perform this ceremony? So then Krishna said, everyone should dress themselves very beautifully, and we should adorn our carts, we should adorn our bullock carts with nice festoons, etc. And we should put the cows in front of us, and we should have lots of music, and we should circumambulate Giriraj Govardhana. And then we should come back here. This is all taking place in this town that is today called Annayor. It's in that particular spot. Then we should come back here, and then we should very humbly offer all these preparations to Giriraj directly himself. So the Brijbasis, the mood of the Brijbasis constantly is festivity. Actually, while we're staying in Govardhana, we'll become aware that there's always musical chanting and singing going on the entire time somewhere. There's always one group of devotees chanting or singing. You're always going to be hearing that constantly. It's the mood of Govardhana. So the idea of this festival very much appealed to the Brijbasis. So they gathered their carts together and they decorated them beautifully, and the ladies dressed very, very nicely, and the men also dressed nicely. Then they put the cows in front, and with much music and much festivity, they began to circumambulate Giriraj Govardhana. This is all very beautifully described in Ananda Vrindavan Champu. And Krishna was so happy with this arrangement, because at this time, when it's a festivity arrangement like this, Krishna can more easily associate with his beloved gopis, which is always the principle of all the ideas that Krishna wants to arrange, is that he becomes ultimately closer to Sri Radha. It's actually described by Kavi Kanpur in that Ananda Vrindavan Champu that the beautiful melodies and the sound of the music caused Indra to have a headache, and the Ashwini Kumars, who are Indra's heavenly doctors, they diagnosed the origin of this headache was coming from the music of the Brijbasis, because Indra had become very disturbed. He had seen that the Brijbasis, they're not performing their traditional yajna to me, they're not giving me the offering. Who do they think they are? And he became very angry and infuriated, and he got a headache, it's described. And the Ashwini Kumars, his doctors, they diagnosed that headache as being caused by the beautiful music and sounds of the Brijbasis circumambulating Giriraj Govardhana. So after their circumambulation of Govardhana, then they came to this very place of Annayor, and then they began to offer mountains of rice, mountains of vegetables, mountains of dal, mountains of samosas, halava, so much wonderful foodstuffs was offered very generously to Giriraj Govardhana. And Krishna, at that time, he wanted to instill great faith in the hearts of the Brijbasis that they had done the right thing by worshipping Giriraj Govardhan. So he personally manifested himself as Giriraj Govardhan. He manifested himself in a huge form, and with his huge hands and huge mouth, he took all of that foodstuffs and he consumed it. And the Brijbasis, they had filled up beautiful kunds filled with sweet rice and beautiful kunds filled with different nectar drinks. And Giriraj Govardhan, he drank all of that. The Brijbasis, they were shocked. They were utterly amazed to see this enormous form of Govardhan rising over the horizon of his hill with his hands and his beautiful face. And when Krishna saw him from the ground, Krishna was with all the Brijbasis, of course, then he immediately offered his Dandavat pranams to Giriraj Govardhana. Then all the Brijbasis followed suit, and they all began to chant beautiful prayers to Giriraj Govardhana and sing in his glorification, watching him take all these foodstuffs. And then, as I was saying yesterday, it seemed like Giriraj was asking for more and more. He kept saying, Anore, Anore, bring me more, bring me more. He was so satisfied with the offerings of the Brijbasis, and they very happily ran to their homes and brought more and more until they practically exhausted all their foodstuffs. And then at that time, as I described yesterday, one Brahmin came forward and offered many bushes of tulsi, and then this satisfied Giriraj Govardhan. And then he became happy. And he said, yes, now I'm satisfied. And then he disappeared. And after he disappeared, all of the foodstuffs again manifested where it was before. So then Krishna and the Brijbasis, they all honored all of that foodstuffs. So this place, this village where we are, is called Anore. And this is called Annayor because Krishna, as Giriraj Govardhan, was calling out, Anore, give me more, bring me more, in appreciation of the tastiness of the Brijbasis' offerings. So now the rest of the pastime is practically history. We know exactly what took place next when Indra became incensed with anger at Krishna's persuading the Brijbasis not to honor him with the yajna. So that rest of the pastime we'll discuss as we go on to different places of the pastimes in Giriraj Govardhan. But just here at Annayor, we'll just remember how Krishna convinced the Gopas and Gopis to honor Giriraj and the Brahmins and the cows instead of Indra. And he accepted all of those foodstuffs. So this is the pastime we hear, and the conclusion to the pastime with Indra we'll discuss a little bit later. So Hare Krishna, now we're going to go to Govinda Kunda. And in Govinda Kunda, we'll hear the beautiful pastimes of Madhavendra Puripad, who sat there, Krishna's great devotee, and manifested the beautiful deity of Gopal, or Nataji, which is worshipped there very beautifully. So now our dear friend Sripad Bhaktivedanta Tapasvi Maharaj will speak something of the glories of Govinda Kunda. Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Now we are at Govinda Kunda. And before I start speaking on Govinda Kunda and Madhavendra Puripad, there's one amendment from yesterday. Yesterday I had talked about the sages, the sadhana siddha sages, and I had said of Naimisharanya. However, they are the sages of Dantakaranya. So Govinda Kunda, this very, very special place that Madhavinda Puripad had a very special relationship with. One time Madhavinda Puripad, he travelled to Vrindavan and he came to Govardhana. And when he saw Govardhana, which is non-different from the body of Sri Krishna, he was maddened in transcendental love. Sometimes he stood up, sometimes he fell down, and he was crying tears from the heart. Madhavinda Puri's position is so special and his love is so unique in this world. Although Madhavinda Puri, he appeared, took initiation within the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, the understanding of the conjugal love affairs of Radha and Krishna and the awakening of this conjugal ras within one's own heart had never appeared within this Sampradaya until Sri Madhavinda Puri revealed it to the world. So after circumambulating Govardhana Hill, Madhavinda Puri went to where we are now, Govinda Kunda. So this is the place where Indra, after seeking shelter of Krishna, he had sent the Samvartaka clouds due to being humiliated by the Lord. His pride smashed in order to destroy all of Braj. But Krishna effortlessly lifted Govardhana Hill with his little finger on his left hand and called all the cows and all the Brajbasis under the hill, where they were safe and peacefully remained for 7 days while the thunder and rains were pouring down. And of course, at last we know that Indra, seeing that this small 7-year-old child was none other than the Supreme Absolute, the Almighty, powerful Godhead, he came down and begged his forgiveness. So in Govinda Kunda, Indra performed the Abhishek ceremony for Lord Krishna. So this Kund is the place where the Abhishek of Lord Krishna was performed. So to this day, it's one of the most holy places on the whole of the earth planet. Madhavendra Puri sat to take his bath at Govinda Kunda, and after taking his bath, he sat beneath a tree to take rest, and while he was sitting beneath the tree, an unknown cowherd boy came with a pot of milk and placed it before Madhavendra Puri. So this cowherd boy with a smile addressed Madhavendra Puri. He said, "Please drink this milk I've brought. And why don't you beg some food to eat? And what kind of meditation are you undergoing?" When Madhavendra Puri saw that boy, he became very satisfied. Hearing his sweet words, he forgot all his hunger and thirst. So then Madhavendra Puri, he starts to become a little inquisitive. He starts wondering, who is this? Who are you? Where do you reside? And how do you know that I was fasting? So the boy replied, "Oh, sir, I'm a cowherd boy and I reside in this village. In my village, no one fasts. In this village, a person can beg from other people and thus eat. Some people only drink milk. But if a person doesn't ask for any food, I will supply him all eatables." It's special also because Madhavendra Puri was amazed because he had taken this vrat that when the sun rises to the sunset, he wouldn't eat anything and he wouldn't ask for anything from anybody. He had taken that vrat. So he was like really surprised that Krishna knew everything about him. So he's asking, well, how do you know? Madhavendra Puri is asking Krishna, how do you know? Okay, the women who came here to take water saw you, and they supplied me with this milk and sent me to you. So the ladies, the ladies of the village. This is Krishna, he's saying, oh, I know because the ladies of the village told me. I must go very soon to milk the cows, but I will return and take back this pot of milk from you. So after saying this, the boy left and could no longer be seen. And after drinking the milk, Madhavendra Puripad, he washed that pot and put it aside. And he looked towards the path, but that boy, he never returned. Then Madhavendra Puri, sitting under the tree, began to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And at the end of the night, he dozed a little and saw. And in a dream, he saw the same boy. The boy came to him holding his hand and took him into the jungle. And the boy showed Madhavendra Puri a bush and said, I reside under this bush. And because of this, I suffer very much from severe cold, rain, showers, heat. Please bring the people of the village and get them to take me out of this bush. Tell them to take me out of this bush and put me on top of the hill. And you ask them to please construct a temple on top of the hill and install me there on top of that hill. And after installing me, you please wash me with large quantities of cold water so that my body may be cleansed. For many days I've been observing you and I've been wondering, when will Madhavendra Puri come to serve me? See, Krishna had accepted Madhavendra Puripad's service because of his ecstatic love for him. So Krishna was saying, so I shall appear by my audience, all the fallen souls will be delivered, and my name is Gopal. I am the lifter of Govardhana hill. I was installed by VRAJA-MANDAL, and here I am the authority. When the Mohammedans attacked, the priest who was serving me hid me in the bush, in the jungle, and ran away out of fear of attack. Since the priest went away, I've been staying here in this bush, and it's very good that you have come here. Now just remove me with care. So after saying this, Krishna, the boy, disappeared. And then Madhavendra Puripad, he wakes up and he begins to consider his dream. He begins to lament, oh, I saw Lord Krishna directly, but I couldn't recognize him. And so he fell on the ground in ecstatic love and he cried for some time. But then he fixed his mind, okay, now I'm going to execute the order of Gopal. And thus he became tranquil. Madhavendra Puri fixed his mind on executing this order. And so after taking his morning bath, he entered the village and assembled the people. I remember Srila Bhakti-Vigyan Bharati Maharaj saying that this was a very important point because Madhavendra Puripad had made a vow never to ask anything from anybody. But here he is, he's about to go and ask all the villagers to help him to excavate Gopal and to perform Abhishek and to cook so many things. So that for himself, he didn't want anything. He took that vow never to beg anything, and he would only take milk. But as soon as it came to service of the Lord, he broke his vow. He completely gave up that vow for the pleasure of the Lord. So then Madhavendra Puripad, he spoke to the villagers and he told them that the proprietor of this village, Govardhana, is lying in the bushes. Let's go and rescue him from that place. He told them that the bushes are very dense and that they should bring choppers and spades. They're going to do some hard work. They'd have to clear the way. So hearing this, with great pleasure, all the villagers followed Madhavinda Puri, and they cut through the jungle to make a path. And when they saw the deity covered with dirt and grass, and they were all struck with wondering pleasure. After they cleansed the body of Gopal, they realized, oh, this deity is really heavy, and that no one person could move him. So some of the stronger men came and to carry him on top of the hill, and a big stone was made for a throne, and another stone was put behind for support. Again, Srila Bharati Maharaj, he speaks on this, and he said, how amazing is it that the Lord was unable to stand without any support, that Madhavendra Puri had to arrange for these 3 big stones to support the Lord. That same Lord who walked to give milk to Madhavendra Puri, who spoke with him directly, is now requesting assistance. What does this mean? He's demonstrating his complete helplessness. So Gopal, who knows the heart of everyone, who's the cause of all causes, the Supreme Lord, amazing that he's suddenly unable to stand without the support in his deity form. So for the pleasure of his devotees, the Lord performs his pastimes as a deity, devoid of independence and requiring assistance. So then the Brahmanas gathered, and according to Gopal's instruction in the dream, that so many pots of cold water from Govinda Kunda, where we are now, was brought. And they were collecting these pots, and there was beautiful kirtan, musical instruments, and they were singing. It was a big festival of the installation. Some sang, some danced, and all the milk and yogurt and ghee from the entire village were brought to the festival. Various foods, sweetmeats, and other kinds of presentations were brought. They brought large quantities of tulsi leaves, flowers, all kinds of garlands. And then Madhavinda Puri, he personally began the Abhishek ceremony. Firstly, he dispelled all inauspiciousness by chanting mantras. And then the deity was massaged with a large quantity of oil, so that his body became very beautiful, very shiny. So after the first bathing, they bathed him with the Panchagavya, means cow dung, cow urine, ghee, yogurt, and milk. Then they bathed him with Panchamrit, which is also has 5 ingredients: yogurt, milk, honey, sugar, and ghee. And then they bathed him with over 100 pots of water, scented with fine oils as well as with ghee. So this is called Mahashnan. So after this great Abhishek, they again massaged Gopal's body with scented oils. And then again, the last bathing ceremony was performed with scented water in a conch shell. After the deity was cleansed, he was dressed with so many beautiful, nice garments, and sandalwood pulp was put on. And beautiful tulsi garlands and other fragrant garlands were put on the body of the deity. And then after that was all finished, then they lit incense and lamps, and all kinds of food were offered to Gopal. That was full of yogurt and milk and all these different kinds of sweets. Because as soon as the people of the village understood that the deity was to be installed, they brought the entire stock of all the foods that they could get, like rice and dal, vegetables. They had prepared all these things. And this covered the whole area to offer this all to Gopal. 10 Brahmins cooked the food grains. 5 Brahmins cooked all the dry and liquid vegetables. So there was a huge quantity of food. So they made a big mountain of rice. Around the mountain of rice there were chapatis, rotis, all kinds of vegetables, pots of yogurt, butter, milk, shrikand, sweet rice, cream, solid cream, all these kinds of wonderful preparations. And this Anukut ceremony was performed by Madhavinda Puri. So he personally offered everything to Gopal. And then they offered scented water for drinking, in the consciousness that Gopal must have been very thirsty for so many days because he had been covered. How Gopal ate everything that was offered, mountains of food, bogar, covered the entire surface of Govardhana hill. So Madhavinda Puri then offered Gopal water for washing his mouth, and arti ceremony was performed by Madhavinda Puri himself. Everybody was chanting, Jai Gopal, Jai Gopal. And then, arranging for the Lord's rest, Madhavinda Puri got a new bed and constructed a little temple so that Gopal could have a nice, comfortable, private place to rest. And then Madhavinda Puri, he instructed, okay, now he gathered all the Brahmins who had cooked the prasad, and now he instructed we must feed everybody sumptuously. Feed everybody from the little children up to the aged. So let everybody take prasad. All the Brahmins and their wives ate first. Not only did the people of Govardhana hill take prasad, but also there were many people who came from other villages, and because they heard about this festival, and they were also fed as well. So they all saw the deity of Gopal and were all offered sumptuous prasad. And seeing this, seeing the influence of Madhavinda Puri's love and devotion that had attracted Gopal to appear, they were all struck with wonder that this Madhavinda Puripad is such a special devotee. And they were completely amazed by his devotion. And then Madhavinda Puripad instructed them how to carry out the worship of Gopal. He put him to rest, how to wake him up, how to offer bhog, and how to do everything, how to take care of them. And after day, this same ceremony was going on again and again, the cooking, all for the pleasure of Gopal. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's described that how Madhavinda Puri, he didn't eat anything through the day and at night. After laying down the deity to rest, he took a milk preparation. And the next morning, again, another village came, and then another village came. So there was entire villages coming, and storehouses of grains were all kept for the pleasure of Gopal. But Madhavinda Puri, because all this opulence came, he wasn't enjoying it. He was simply living a very, very simple life and offering all of this for Krishna's pleasure. So some people from Mathura, they were wealthy, and they came and they brought all sort of articles for puja, presentations of gold, silver. And there was one very rich Kshatriya of the royal order. He constructed a temple. And some made cooking utensils, some contributed a cow to Gopal. Eventually, 2 Brahmins from Bengal appeared, and they were in the renounced order. And Madhavinda Puripad, he was very pleased with them. And they also became very dear to him. So he initiated them, and he entrusted the puja and the whole deity puja in their care. So in that way, the worship of Gopal was gorgeously performed. And then one day, Madhavinda Puri, after 2 years while resting, he had another dream. And in this dream, Gopal appeared to him again, and he said that my body temperature still has not decreased. Please bring sandalwood from the Malaya province and smear the pulp all over my body to cool me. Bring sandalwood pulp from Jagannath Puri Go quickly. And since no one else can do it, you must. So this is also very nice, because you've got to remember that Madhavinda Puri, he had many disciples. So he could have easily said, okay, disciples, go and do this work. But because of his love for the Lord, he was very excited to go and do this seva for Gopal. Because Madhavinda Puri, he was actually just living like a beggar with nothing. So by the arrangement of Krishna, now there was some beautiful temple, palatial building, there were thousands of people coming. But because he was utterly surrendered at the Lord's feet, he just simply wanted to serve the Lord. But when Gopal appeared to him in a dream and said, go to Puri and bring sandalwood back for me, he would have to set out on foot, which basically meant many months going through the jungles alone. And to get the sandalwood from Puri, this was going to be a very difficult task, a lonely task. But without a moment's notice, he was willing to leave his beloved object of his life, Gopal, leave all his disciples, leave all the people, all the preaching he was doing, leave the beautiful building, all the facilities, because this is the desire of Krishna. So this is true renunciation, that we don't want to enjoy any of these facilities. So after having this dream, Madhavinda Puri became very glad due to love of Krishna. And in order to execute the command, he started for Bengal. And he made all the arrangements that Gopal was taken care of, and he started off for Bengal. He went and eventually arrived in Jatipura, where he stayed with Advaita Acharya. And Advaita Acharya is the disciple of Madhavinda Puri. Madhavinda Puri Pad had some very prominent disciples, also Ishvara Puripad, the guru of Mahaprabhu, and also Madhavinda Puri Pad and Nityananda Prabhu. They were very close. They had a very, very intimate relationship. Madhavinda Puri Pad's guru is Lakshmipati. So after giving Advaita Acharya initiation, Madhavinda Puri continued, and he came to Remuna, where Gopinath is, and there he was just overwhelmed with the beauty of Gopinath. Then he sat down and he was speaking to the Punchari, who was a Brahmin. He said, what kind of food? He wanted to know, because he was thinking, what kind of food can I offer my Gopal? So then he was inquiring, what kind of food do you serve to Gopinath, so that I can serve my Gopal better? Because Gopinath and Gopal are the same. He was always thinking of serving Gopal in every situation, and he was taking every opportunity as an opportunity to serve Gopal. So he was seeing that this temple, they had made so many wonderful arrangements, so they have the very highest quality of food, bhoga, to offer to the Lord. So I want to know that, so I want to learn this, so I can do that for Gopal. So then that priest explained everything to him. And then he told him that in the evening they offer a preparation called kheer in 12 earthen pots. And because the taste is like nectar, it is called Amrita Keli. And explained that sweet rice, this kheer, is celebrated throughout the entire world as Gopinath Kheer. Although it is not offered anywhere else in this world, and while you're taking it, Punchari brought the offering of the 12. And while he was talking, while the Punchari was talking about this, they brought the offering of the 12 pots onto the altar. And then Madhavendra Puri Pad, he was thinking, oh, only if I could taste a little bit. If without my asking, he was thinking, someone brings me just a small portion. If somehow or other someone brings a little bit and I can taste it, then I can prepare a similar preparation for Gopal. And then suddenly he thought in his mind, oh my gosh, how offensive am I? Well, Thakurji, Sri Krishna is eating the food. While he's eating it, I'm just thinking that what does this food taste like? And then he felt so guilty and very bad inside. And at that time, the bell rang and the arti begins. And after arti, Madhavendra Puri, he offers his obeisances and he left without saying anything to anyone, feeling bad that, oh, he had thought to taste this kheer, although it was for Gopal. So then he goes to a vacant marketplace and he simply sat feeling some pain within his heart, feeling guilty, that he had been wanting to eat what is meant for Krishna. Of course we know that Madhavendra Puripad, he was only thinking for the pleasure of the Lord. But he was considering himself, oh, I'm just an offensive neophyte devotee, wanting to lord it over and enjoy the property of the Lord. So he went to the marketplace and he started chanting the holy names. As he was there, the Punchari, after finishing his duties, he was putting Gopinath to rest, and then that Punchari also took rest. But in a dream, the Punchari, he saw Gopinath, and he appeared to him, and he spoke, "Oh, please get up and open the door of the temple. I have kept one pot of sweet rice for the sannyasi Madhavendra Puri. This pot of sweet rice is just behind my cloth curtain. You did not see it because of my tricks." So Krishna had stolen it. He had put it behind to keep it for his devotee. A sannyasi, so this is Gopinath, he's speaking to his Punchari, saying, oh, a sannyasi named Madhavendra Puri is sitting in the vacant marketplace. Please take this pot of sweet rice from behind me and deliver it to him. So awakening from the dream, the Punchari rose and took his bath, went into the temple, and there he found that pot of sweet rice. Behind the deity was hidden one pot of kheer. And the Punchari was amazed, he was struck with wonder. And then he went out, closed the temple, and he went out and started calling every Madhavendra Puri, may whose name is Madhavendra Puri, please come, take this pot. Gopinath has stolen this pot for you. So he was going everywhere, calling, oh, you're the most fortunate person within this 3 worlds. So hearing the invitation, Madhavendra Puri came out and identified himself, and the priest, knowing what sort of person that this is, that Gopinath had stolen this kheer for him, just for him, he did his prostrated obeisances to Madhavendra Puri. And he related the whole dream that he had, and that Gopinath had kept this pot of kheer for him, had stolen this pot for him. He could understand, the Punchari could understand that Krishna has been so kind to this person. But when Punchari saw Madhavendra Puri's Pad's humility and devotion, he was also completely understanding that this is such a great personality. So then Madhavendra Puri Pad, he's taken the pot, he eats the sweet rice, and he washed the pot and broke it into pieces, and he bound it in a cloth to take with him. And then Madhavendra Puri, he would each day eat a little bit from that earthen pot. So out of his humility, because he knew that there would be great crowds tomorrow, knowing that he had been given this pot, he didn't want to become famous. He didn't want this kind of recognition, because he was secretly worshipping Krishna in his heart. So thinking like this, that to avoid any kind of recognition, that Madhavendra Puri offered obeisances to Gopinath on that spot, and he left for Ramuna. left for Puri. Sorry, he left Ramuna for Puri, yes. So after walking, he finally reaches Puri. And he approaches, as he's approaching Jagannath Puri, he was feeling great love, prema in his heart. And sometimes he stood up, sometimes he fell down, sometimes he danced, sometimes he sang. In this way, he felt so much happiness in his heart from seeing the Jagannath deity. And because his reputation had already preceded him, people understood that this is a very great devotee. So many people came and greeted him and celebrated his arrival. Madhavendra Puri wanted to leave Jagannath Puri because the people were honoring him as such a great devotee. However, he had in the forefront of his mind his seva. So he just thought, now I need to get this sandalwood for Gopal. So for the sake of service to Gopal, he was going to tolerate all of this respectfulness, all of this honor. So Madhavendra Puri told the servants of Lord Jagannath and all the great devotees there the story about Gopal. And everybody was hearing with great pleasure. And he was saying that I also wanted to beg for camphor and sandalwood. And the government officers, they all collected the sandalwood and the camphor. And also one Brahmin and one servant were given to Madhavendra Puri to carry the sandalwood. And he was also given all the necessities, all the papers, because it was dangerous to cross India at that time. So he got these release papers and then he left. And on his way, he started for Vrindavan. And after some days, he again reached Ramuna and he went to the Gopinath temple. Although he had one Brahmin and one servant, in those days, the sandalwood and camphor were very, very valuable. And he had to also travel through so many jungles and forests where there was thieves, dacoits, rogues, and anybody could rob him and kill him. But he was fearless. He was that, okay, whatever Krishna wills, let it be. I'm his servant. Completely dependent upon the Lord. So Madhavendra Puri reached the temple of Gopinath. And in that temple of Gopinath, he offered his obeisances and he began to dance and sing, being so happy to have the darshan of Gopinath. And when the Punchari again saw Madhavendra Puri, he offered him respects and gave him sweet rice, prasadam to eat. And Madhavendra Puri was so humble, he would have to make him eat it. So that night, Madhavendra Puri, he took rest. And toward the end of the night, he had another dream. And Madhavendra Puri dreamed that Gopal came before him again and said, "Oh, Madhavendra Puri, I have already received all the sandalwood and camphor. The Gopal of Vrindavan is speaking to him here. Now just grind all the sandalwood together with the camphor and then smear the pulp on the body of Gopinath daily until it is finished. There's no difference between my body and Gopinath's body. They are one and the same. Therefore, if you smear this sandalwood on the body of Gopinath, you'll naturally smear it on my body." Because, as we know, what originally happened was that Gopal's body was feeling so much heat. So the sandalwood and the camphor would be cooling to Gopal's body. So because Gopinath and Gopal's body are the same, by putting this camphor and sandalwood on Gopinath's body, Gopal's temperature would also be reduced. So he said, do this. Don't hesitate to act in any other way. Just do what I'm saying. Believe me, just do. And then Gopal disappeared in that dream. Immediately, Madhavendra Puripad, he wakes up and he calls for the servants of Gopinath, and he says, smear the body of Gopinath with this camphor and sandalwood that I've brought for Gopal and Vrindavan. And do this every day. And in this way, if we do this to Gopinath, then Gopal's body will be cooled. So the servants of Gopinath were so pleased to hear this. And because it was the summer season and it was now becoming very hot. So he gave his 2 assistants to regularly grind the sandalwood, and the 2 other people would help. That was their service, just to grind the sandalwood and present to Gopinath. So in this way, Gopinath's body was completely covered with sandalwood pulp. And Madhavendra Puripad, he stayed there until the entire stock was finished. Then at the end of the summer, Madhavendra Puri returned to Jagannath Puri, where he remained with great pleasure during the whole period of Chaturmas. And finally, in glorification of Madhavendra Puri, we remember the beautiful verse he chanted in response when Radha went to sit on Krishna's shoulder after she left the rasa dance in Man. And being pacified by Krishna for many different reasons, Krishna asked, do you want to keep walking or to go to a flower bed? And Radha replied, I don't care. Krishna says, Priya, just sit on my shoulder. When she goes to sit on his shoulder, he disappears. At that time, Radha says, He Nata Ramana Preshta, Kwasi Kwasi Mahabhuja. This is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, chapter 30, text 39. O Master, my lover, O dearest, where are you? Where are you? Please, O mighty armed one, O friend, show yourself to me, your maidservant, who is very much aggrieved by your absence. Then Madhavendra Puripad is remembering this heart-breaking cry from Srimati Radhika. Then he writes, Ai dina dayadra nata he, mathura nata kadavak loks yase. This is from Padyavali, quoted by Madhavendra Puri. O you, whose heart is most merciful to the wretched, O Master, O Lord of Mathura, when will I have your darshan? O Lord of my life, because I cannot see you, my heart has become agitated. What shall I do now? So this is verse he's speaking in remembrance of Srimati Radhika's extreme lamentation. Shri Madhavendra Puri Pada Ki Jai. Panchakalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhumayevacha paditanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
So thank you very much to Pasri Maharaj for that very nice, beautiful pastime of Madhavendra Puripad. There's also, of course, the significance of Govinda Kunda, where after Indra had tried to destroy the Brijbasis, inundate them with these massive clouds that were broken free from their bindings. They were bound by ropes made of wind, and these clouds were set free, these Shamantaka clouds, to inundate the whole of Braj in Indra's anger. And after this horrific event, then Indra, he understands his great offense, and he comes to this place, Govinda Kunda, with Surabhi cow to beg forgiveness from Krishna. And it's described that after Krishna has performed the beautiful pastime of lifting Govardhana hill and saving and nourishing all the residents and cows from the torrential rains, then a day or so after that event, he's walking on the top of Giriraj Govardhan just to see what kind of damage was done by this tremendous storm. And also he wants to be alone to give Indra an opportunity to approach him. And at that time, at this place of Govinda Kunda, then Indra approaches him with Surabhi cow. Indra was very fearful of Krishna now, having made such a horrendous apparat towards him. And he went to Lord Brahma, and he asked Lord Brahma, how should he act, and how can he apologize to Krishna? And Lord Brahma, he said, if you take Surabhi cow, that Krishna is so favorable towards the cows that if he sees first that beautiful Surabhi cow, then his heart will melt, and then you can come and offer your apologies and so on. So Indra, he does like that, and he meets him at this place. And it's at this place that a very beautiful abhishek takes place, arranged by Indra to glorify Krishna as the supreme Govinda, as that person, or the supreme Indra. Indra offers him the post of king of the heavenly planets at that time. And then Krishna, there's a beautiful description in the Ananda Vrindavan Champu of this wonderful abhishek that happens in Govinda Kunda. It's described that all the devas, they all came to glorify Krishna and his bathing ceremony. So I'm going to read something from Kavi Kanpur's Ananda Vrindavan Champu just to supplement this description here. After becoming purified of his false pride by glorifying Krishna, Indra commenced the auspicious bathing ceremony. Brahma, the four Kumaras, Uma, Mahadev, Tambaru, Kartikeya, Narad, and Savita attended Krishna's abhishek. Many exalted rishis and sages beautified the assembly. The effulgent wives of the demigods, such as Arundhati, also visited. The celestial apsaras like Urvasi watching from the sky enhanced the festival with their splendid forms and qualities. Govardhana, with the limbs of his own body, provided an elegant throne made of smooth stones and jewels. The demigod Varuna personally held a fine white umbrella over Krishna's head and had a fringe of hanging pearls that appeared like falling raindrops. Vayu, his arm trembling in ecstatic devotion, stood beside the Lord, fanning him with a chamara whisk. The full moon assumed the form of a mirror made of jewels. Panchajanya, the Lord's conch shell, sanctified the atmosphere with loud sounds. The effulgent Sudarshan chakra expanded as many lamps to illuminate all directions. Krishna's white lotus flower expanded into many white umbrellas to shield the Lord. Kaumodika, the Lord's club, who is honored for his strength, stood like a jeweled pillar for the bathing ceremony. The personified forms of the sacred oceans, rivers, ponds, and lakes came with pots of water to bathe Krishna. Mother Bhumi collected the finest quality earth in a box covered with 7 jewels. Placing the box on a jeweled plate, she slowly approached Krishna and offered it to him. The best herbs and medicinal plants personified presented themselves for Krishna's service. Great sacred trees such as the banyan and peepal tree manifested in person to give Krishna leaves containing the 5 types of tastes in golden pots studded with gems of lapis lazuli. The forest gods from the 10 directions brought water pots covered with coconuts and various delicious fruits. The Lord of the mountains brought exotic gems and jewels. The 9 jewels, the 8 yogic siddhis, the best jewels like Chintamani, Kamandenu, the desire trees, all assumed charming forms to worship the Lord. Standing at a distance, they faced Krishna with folded hands. The goddess of Mount Sumeru offered a golden cloth, and the goddess of the Himalayas presented splendid necklaces. The goddesses of the Gandhama mountain brought golden lotuses from Mansarovar lake and personally strung a garland for Krishna. The goddess of the Malaya mountain delivered the best quality sandalwood, grinding it on a stone from Govardhana. She made a smooth, fragrant paste for Krishna. Without the knowledge of her husband, Parvati handed Krishna a gorgeous jeweled necklace. With their own hands, the Saptarishis plucked fresh lotus buds from the Mandakini river to offer to the Lord. When needed for service, the sun god made the lotus flowers blossom for the Lord. The shining of the moon appeared as a mirror. Agni offered an artistic design golden incense pot with a hanging fringe made of coral. So it goes on and on and on. All the devas came to glorify Krishna in extreme opulence. And yet Krishna was sitting there on a stone provided by Giriraj Govardhan and kind of looking bored. He was seeing it all, but he was not really very interested in all this opulence. He was in his Brajendranandan form totally. And then from lower down the hill, on a pathway, all the sakhas, all Krishna's sakhas, Madhumangal, Subal, Sridham, Stoka Krishna, etc., they were all walking along, and they saw on the top of the mountain these shining beings. And they all wondered, who are they? And then Madhumangal said very knowledgeably, oh, they are the devas. The devas have come down. They're all on top of Govardhan Hill. And then the sakhas, they decided they had to go up and they had to see what was happening. So as the sakhas approached that spot, the devas realized that this would be complete rasa-basa for Krishna if they remained and conversed in any way or had any contact with the cowherd boys. So they dropped all of their splendid paraphernalia and jumped behind the clouds, so as not to disturb the pastime of Krishna further than they had already disturbed it with the rain. And then the demigods, to their amazement, they saw Krishna's mood change so radically. As soon as the cowherd boys came, Krishna started to smile and laugh and joke. Then the cowherd boys, they saw these splendid chamaras and peacock fans and beautiful jewel ornaments and so on, and they picked them up and then they began play acting, offering them all to Krishna. They picked up the 1,000-holder lamp and began offering it to Krishna. And Krishna was laughing very much. He was joking. He was so happy to be with his sakhas. And the demigods, they were wondering, well, what did we do? We came with our greatest opulence to offer Krishna, and he wasn't even slightly, remotely impressed. But here he is with these young boys, and he's just so happy and pleased with them. So again, we're seeing this dramatic distinction between the Aishwarya Bhav and how it affects Krishna, and the Madhurya Bhav. So this all took place at Govinda Kunda, this very beautiful pastime of where Indra, he tries to pacify Krishna for his dreadful mistake. But we'll hear more about this pastime when we come around past Punchari and we come to Surabhi-kunda, and we will hear something of this pastime again. So this is just the pastime pertaining to Govinda Kunda. Govinda Kunda ki jai, Madhavendra Puri Pad ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So now we're going to continue on our Parikrama, and we're walking in the inside path along to the southern end of Punchari. I explained yesterday how Punchari means the tail. If you see Giriraj Govardhan in the shape of a cow or a peacock, then this is the tail end. This is the end part. And we're going to turn around the corner and then go back up north towards the Govardhan township and our mandir there. But on the way, before we get to Punchari, there's a very small little temple right on the hill of Govardhan. We see it has a beautiful pinkish dome, and just below that dome, where we can access it, is a tree with a stone with an impression of Baladev Prabhu's mukit. All of this country south of Annayor, we understand and appreciate is like a mood of Baladev Prabhu, just like on the eastern bank of the Jamuna. It's all we would say like Baladev country. So this area here around Govinda Kunda is also Baladev Prabhu country. There's, as we leave Annayor, there's the very beautiful Kund of Sankarshan Kund that in the last 3 or 4, maybe 5 years has been beautifully renovated. It just used to be a pile of horrible looking plastic bags and mucky water there. But now it's been beautifully excavated and renovated. It has nice walls around it, nice steps, and we can bathe there if we choose. So it's a very large lake in honor of Sankarshan Prabhu. And there's a beautiful deity just behind this lake, between Sankarshan Kund and the Giriraj Govardhana, in the village of Annayor, at the back of Annayor. And it's more or less just inside what seems to be like a house. It's a very simple place, but this deity was in fact installed by Brajanaba. And the Balaram inside that small temple is about 5 feet tall, and he's completely blackish. He's very, very, very beautiful deity, and he's been very simply worshipped just by a Brijabasi family and couple. There's no Aishwarya mood of his worship there. This deity was found in the Kund of Sankarshan Kund. After the Muslims had come through this area, the Brahmins, they hid him there. And after the Muslims left, then again he was pulled out of the Kund and just installed again in this house for worship today. So if you go just the edge of Annayor, that village, then you'll see this beautiful 5 foot high black beautiful deity of Baladev Prabhu. So that influence of Baladev Prabhu is all the way down from Govinda Kunda and then all the way down to Punchari. And just before we reach Punchari, we see on the top of Govardhana Hill is this beautiful little pinkish dome. And that's that also has a beautiful Balaram deity inside there, blackish deity of Balaram. Because the pastime here is that Balaram, when the Chandra Sarova Ras Leela was going on, Balaram was walking on the top of Govardhana, and he could see with his vision from there clearly the splendor of Krishna's Vasant Ras at that place. And he became completely absorbed in the beauty and speciality of Krishna at that time and went black, lost his light complexion and became completely shyam colored. And he crouched down and he was looking across in astonishment, and he froze in ecstasy. And the next morning Krishna was walking in that very area, and Baladev Prabhu was still in that position, frozen. And Krishna just gave him a friendly push. And when he pushed him like that, his crown fell off, and it marked the place where we can have darshan of it today as we're walking along the trail towards Punchari. We just come off the path to the right, and we walk in. There's a small tree, and at the base of the tree there's a stone with the impression of Baladev Prabhu's crown, his mukut. So that's the pastime there. And it's interesting because when we see that little temple on the top of Giriraj there, then when we come round the other side, just before we reach Surabhi-kunda, we'll see the same top of the temple, but from the other side of the hill. And then we can appreciate just how skinny Giriraj Govardhana really is. Govardhana, of course, is sinking at the size of a mustard seed or a sesame seed every single day. So he's also becoming more narrow as well as sinking into the ground. So we can appreciate the size or the skinny nature of Giriraj Govardhana today. And we can also, of course, relish the speciality and sweetness of Baladev Prabhu's pastime at this place. So then we're going to continue walking, and just before we get to Punchari, off to our left, you'll see what looks like a huge fortress, and inside here is a very beautiful ancient Nrsingadev Murti. The Brijbasis had no fear of anything except the fear of separation. So Nrsingadev, Bhagavan Nrsingadev himself, he can also comfort the Brijbasis in their fear of separation. So we pray to Lord Nrsingadev to protect us from separation from Krishna's devotees and from our careful sadhana practice to connect with Krishna. So Nrsingadev can clear obstacles for the Vaishnavas, so we can take his shelter there. After we've seen Nrsingadev there are two principal beautiful kunds right at this very place of Punchari. One is Naval Kund and the other is Apsara Kund. Naval Kund is representing Krishna and Apsara Kund is representing Radha. Gurudev describes that these lakes, these kunds, were manifested from the perspiration of their exertion in the Rasa Leela, the Apsara Kund. It's also described about Apsara Kund, who represents Radha, that 7 Apsaras appeared there to glorify the wonderful Vasant Ras that took place very close to Apsara Kund. We'll describe in a moment. And also it's described at Apsara Kund that there are 27 of Krishna's avatars always residing on the banks of Apsara Kund, having darshan of that wonderful nectar-filled kund. And then right next to Apsara Kund is Naval Kund, and it's described that if we bath in these kunds, then very easily any material contamination will be completely washed away from our hearts and minds. So these are very beautiful kunds to honor and appreciate. So just a little north of Apsara Kund, we walk just a little distance, a few hundred yards, and we come to the very beautiful Rasa Stali. We come to the place of the Vasanta Ras. And yesterday we heard a very beautiful description by Tapasvi Maharaj describing the eligibility to enter that Vasant Ras was very selective, in the sense that only the most confidential Sakis were in that Vasant Ras. The sadhana Siddha Gopis did not partake in that Vasant Ras. So we would sit there so many times with Srila Gurudev, and he would describe that previously it was filled with huge kadambas. Now there are practically maybe 1 or 2 kadambas remaining, and there were also many tamal trees previously. But it's surcharged with a beautiful atmosphere of remembrance of Krishna's Rasa Leela pastimes. So these Rasa Leela pastimes are going on eternally in the Aprakat realm, and they are going on eternally in connection with this place at this Vasanta Stali where we are taking darshan now, and we're remembering the speciality and sweetness of this exchange between Krishna and his Priyanam Sakas and his Priya Sakas in great jubilation and happiness to remember the speciality of this Rasa Leela pastime that took place here. And we're appreciating the splendor of the arrangement that Krishna made to bring great happiness to the gopis and great pleasure to himself by arranging such a magnificent dance where they all, singing and dancing is a mood of the heart. So when the heart is joyous, it overflows with singing and dancing. So this is what was exhibited amongst the gopis and Krishna at this time. And it's described how Krishna, he moves so quickly between each of the gopis and dancing and appreciating all of them. So they're all fully satisfied just with the one Krishna. Krishna is able to increase the pleasure of them all individually. So these pastimes are very much remembered by the devotees when we stay at this beautiful, delightful place just north, immediately north of Apsara Kund. So also at this place of the Rasastali, just behind, there's a large temple here, just behind is the cave of Raghava Pandit. It's actually a deep hole because in the summertime the temperatures soar here, and Raghava Pandit will be doing his bhajan here, and the summer temperatures are almost impossible to live during the summer months. So the Babajis traditionally, they dig very deep under the ground where the temperature is always 10 degrees cooler. So we can have darshan of Raghava Pandit's cave. There's a very small doorway and you can see it looks almost like a well, but you can climb down there, and then in that darkened, cool condition, then Raghava Pandit would be able to do his bhajan unimpeded by the high temperatures outside. It's also described that Raghava Pandit, he took Jiva Goswami and Narottam Das on Govardhana Parikrama, and this is described in Bhakti Ratnakara by Narahari, that Raghava Pandit offered that service to Narottam Das Thakur and Jiva Goswami, circumambulating Giriraj Govardhan. So we're remembering this great personality, Raghava Pandit. There are so many pastimes about him. Mahaprabhu would be so satisfied with the food that he cooked. And his sister, Damayanti, she would make beautiful offerings that Mahaprabhu would, this description in Chaitanya Charitamrita, he stored, and he would just take throughout the year these special bags made by Damayanti for Mahaprabhu's pleasure. So we're remembering the great devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who took shelter of Giriraj Govardhan. And now we come past Basant Stali, and the next place we come to, which is again about a quarter of a kilometer, now we're walking up the west side of Giriraj Govardhan, and we come on our left to Surabhi-kunda, and we'll take our breakfast here. There's a family that Srila Gurudev knew very well, and they always host all the devotees very nicely at this place of Surabhi-kunda, and they've also collected over the years enough funds to practically refurbish the whole kund. They drained it and then they cleaned it, and then they built beautiful steps all around the kund, and today it's back in a very healthy condition of attractiveness, and the devotees find it very pleasant sitting on the banks of this kund. And again we listen to the beautiful story of how Surabhi, she pacified Krishna so that Indra could come and beg forgiveness for his offense of trying to inundate the whole of Braj. And Surabhi cow, after that Abhishek that was performed at Govinda Kunda that I just described, she came back here and she wanted to remain in Braj as long as Krishna's pastimes were going on. So she took shelter of this place and she stayed here. So this Surabhi-kunda is in honor of her. And we, every Parikrama, we stay there, and this family and all the local Brijbasis together, they help. They serve us. It's always the same. Prasadam is malpura, very heavy oil, sweet, and very spicy sabji, and sweet rice. Always the same. They serve us this, so the devotees get some weight into their stomachs before they continue the last leg of the journey. So beware of the malpura. They're very tasty, but they can have wicked effects for the delicate Western stomachs. So after taking darshan of Surabhi-kunda and remembering the sweetness and speciality of Surabhi Dev herself. Surabhi also comes with Indra to petition Gauranga Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, in Godrum. There's also another place where Surabhi stays after she's had darshan of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. This is after the pastime of Krishna. She came here afterwards. And Indra, who was still feeling some remorse about his act towards Krishna, it's remarkable when we consider how the demigods, Indra in particular, they beg Krishna for forgiveness. But then we see just a few years later how Indra is refusing to even give one single parijat flower to Krishna. So how quickly are they covered over into regarding the identity of Krishna? They're happy to worship Krishna when everything's in their favor, but when that worship has been completed, then again they become covered over by their heavenly opulences, which just annihilate any pure vision of who is that Supreme Lord. It's described, in fact, that Brihaspati, who is the spiritual master of the Devas, he's described by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur as being Brahman realized. So if the spiritual master is Brahman realized, then what to speak of all the other inhabitants of Swaga? So then, coming from Surabhi-kunda, there are many other beautiful kunds that we can take darshan of. There is Rudra-kund, which is nicely maintained and always has beautiful cool waters. That is there. Also Airavrata-kund, when Airavrata, the elephant carrier of Lord Indra, came with his hoof print, he created this beautiful kund that is still there today. And there's also Indra-kund. Indra, he had to bathe, of course, before he offered this abhishek. So there's these three kunds. Previously, there were hundreds of kunds around Giriraj Govardhan, but gradually, through the period of time, they're all being covered over. But those are just some of the kunds between Surabhi-kunda and Jatipura, these three other beautiful kunds that we can have darshan of. Then we come to Jatipura, and in Jatipura, this is like the mouth of Giriraj. If Giriraj is in the shape of a cow, then his mouth is resting on his stomach. He's got his neck right around and it's resting on his stomach. So this mouth is there. And when we come into this village of Jatipura, for about almost half a kilometer away, all you can smell is rotting milk, because every day thousands and thousands of liters of milk are poured directly onto the rocks of Govardhan, and then they come into a channel, and then they gradually rot that milk. So as we come in there, we see always is a festival going on there. Practically every day of the year there are different groups of people coming and offering quantities of milk to Giriraj Govardhan and sweets and so on. So we come to that place on this edge, this southern edge of Jatipura. And then we come into the township of Jatipura as we're walking through, making the final leg of our parikrama. And Jati means sannyasi, and that sannyasi was none other than Madhavendra Puripad. He resided here in this place, and we see one temple is up on the hill, a very small temple, and that's the remnants of the ancient temple that Madhavendra Puri, when he installed that Gopal Nataji there originally. So that little remains is there, but we don't walk on Giriraj Govardhan following the example set by Sachinandan Gaurahari. He would never walk on the hill of Govardhan. So then after Jatipura, and remembering again the greatness and speciality of Madhavendra Puri, then we walk back the final leg of our journey back to Govardhan, which is a very beautiful walk. You can either walk on the road, or there's an inside path, or there's even an inside path, which is like through a little forested area, a recently planted forested area which is irrigated and tended by different Brijbasi farmers, and it's a very sweet trail to go through. And then we finally come back out again at the busy intersection of Giriraj Govardhan, and we don't go to the right to walk across Govardhan at that point. We go to the left, and then we almost take the first right, and then we start walking through the marketplace of Govardhan itself. It'll be very congested, full of tractors and trailers and buses and lots of noise and cars and so on at that point. And the devotees often start to just straggle out. But don't go right across to go back home to our temple. You take a left and you follow the market road around, and then you take another small street to the right, and then you come very quickly to Manasiganga again. And in Manasiganga, again, we can have darshan of that beautiful place that manifested from Krishna's mind to satisfy the Brijbasis, to stop them from going there for parikrama or pilgrimage. So we'll tell this pastime tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to do an inside journey of Manasiganga. We're going to go to Haridev, Brahmakund, and Mana Si Devi. We'll also see her, and then we'll come around, we'll see Lord Ram is also there, and then as we come further around, we'll see the sitting place or the Bhajan Kutia of Sanatan Goswami, and we'll also see Chakaleshwara Mahadev. When Indra was trying to inundate Braj, Lord Shiva, he threw his trident into the air above Giriraj, and it was spinning around very fast, and it was absorbing so much of the thunderbolts that were being struck onto the back of Giriraj. And then above that trident, of course, is Krishna's Sudarshan chakra itself, which was drinking up all the waters that was falling from Indra's inundation at that time. So then we see this beautiful Kurtiya of Sanatan Goswami, and then Chakaleshwara Mahadev, and we hear those pastimes, and then we come around to Mukaravinda, which is the beautiful face of Giriraj. So we'll do that inside Parikrama tomorrow. So now we'll just go back for our prasadam at Giridhari Gaudiya Mat. Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vanchakalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhavibhacha, Patitanam Pavnibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha.